Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Guess which one is full of gin and is Alex's drink, and guess which one is mine. Yes, correct answer. That is a very large gin and tonic with a big slice of grapefruit in it.
The grapefruit is good for my heart. And as
Yes.
for that green stuff, what the
Yes,
hell
this
is
green
that?
This is makes me feel better. This is your fault because of the hangover you gave me.
You're such a lightweight.
It's actually really good. And
Oh, it's
strong
so
stuff.
good. Mine doesn't make me cough.
welcome, guys. Sorry, welcome. Getting a bit too relaxed here. Two things. First of all, this is a relaxed late evening chat about the economy. Try and keep it lighthearted, keep it fun. But the purpose is for people who are considering their future financial stability and how it may or may not be affected by the economy. That's the context of this conversation. So how good or bad or indifferent or whatever, the various scenarios the economy might play out.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I want to talk about my economy for a moment, right? My economic world. And this has just reminded me that for a while, I've been thinking about getting a channel sponsor.
Right.
An exclusive channel sponsor, just one sponsor, not like, hey, let me tell you about how to make websites and stuff, because that's just annoying. All the time.
Please don't let it be Red Bull.
No.
I'm not jumping off any fucking buildings.
But I do. I want a sponsor who is going to be a fun sponsor, and doesn't have to have anything to do with moving home. It'd be cool if it was. I was talking to one of the big national removals companies about possibly, they actually move people. But if it was Brewdog or these guys or someone who just so if anyone's out there watching and thinking, we'd like to be Charlie's long-term exclusive channel partner sponsor, get in touch. I'm open to offers. Never refuse an offer before it's made.
No. And if there's a rum distillery,
Yes.
perfect.
But also I'd be very super picky. And golden rule, you can never, ever tell me what I can or can't say. Right? It would be the instant end of any sponsorship relationship if you try to tell me what I can or can't say. Someone tried to do that to me a couple of days ago.
Really?
Charlie, you're saying the wrong stuff on your channel. You should be saying this. You should be saying that.
Yeah.
Didn't go down well.
No.
Did not go down well. But anyway, good evening and welcome. Welcome back to those of you who were here earlier. Will Housing Stig be appearing as Lord Nelson pickled in brandy?
It's possible, although I prefer to be drowned in a butt of Malmsey.
Whatever the fuck that is. And Amy M says, if he's on a sex worker, he's unlikely to be clothed as anyone. Right.
I should be so lucky.
I've got to explain the thumbnail for this video. Apologies. It was the only one I could find that had Stig in it. And sex workers and rent is about GDP.
Yes.
And we will be discussing GDP. So tenuous, but not completely wrong. And Lil Gomez 96 says, hi, Charlie and AI Stig. You're not AI. You can't... AI actual intelligence, but he's real. I can poke him and he'll say, ow.
If you cut me, do I not bleed?
Yes. Didn't take many gins to get onto the sex workers.
No. Do you know that has been the story of my life? But there we go.
No, let's not. No. Don't drink. That's very funny. James Barnes says, don't drink the gin. It'll be worth twice as much by the end of the show. You guys are on fire. This is brilliant.
I love a late night chat. It's fantastic. Why can't I see the questions? This is not good.
Twice in one night. It's me, he says. You two will get a reputation.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Anyway,
Is this a double whammy tonight? Yes, it is. That drink looks horrible. Yeah, the green one.
it is
It's
horrible.
Actually, no, it's not. It's good. It's good.
No,
it's
it's just ridiculous.
good. KY jelly, lol, says Darren Westbury. I don't even know. I'm going to ask what you mean by that.
Well, it does stop the chafing.
Oh no! I've been found out. Oh, guys, I'm going to have to stop the channel. Oh, it's been really good. Someone's just completely busted me. Tom G says, basically, Charlie makes outlandish predictions to gain attention and cash in.
You utter
no!
bastard!
I've been found out.
No.
He's seen right through me. You dastardly clever man, you. Yes, I'm just here for fame. Love me, and pay me. I'll say anything.
Do you know, I have long suspected that you are, in fact, just a narcissist. It's just one of those things.
Tom G must be one of those people who doesn't like my projections,
No.
especially as they're turning out right.
Yes.
But thanks for your contribution, Tom. Ask, as it has to be, okay, Sting. Someone's called you Sting. I think it's a typo.
No, Sting. No.
Alexander Robertson.
He does
As a first time
tantric
buyer,
sex.
ask Sting about deflation. I think they mean deflation.
Deflation. Oh, yeah.
Deflation. Tell us about deflation, like as in the relevance context. What is it? When might it happen? Why might it happen? And what does it do?
Well, it may well happen. Depending on who you're listening to at the moment, depending on what data you're reading, you could argue that we actually are experiencing deflation at the moment, even though we appear to be experiencing inflation. If you widen the lens and you look at China, and you look at their exports, and you look at a number of different markers around the world, you would say, actually, it's all grinding to a halt. Actually, we are about to enter the worst recession possible. Now, I happen to believe that's true. Whether we have true deflation and we actually experience a time where things become less valuable as opposed to inflation, where you're saying, oh, sorry, they cost less as time goes by, which, if we're honest, is kind of what we've had for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, let's face it, if you wanted to buy a flat screen television and you go, oh, technology's changed and therefore prices have reduced. But it's even more than that. There are plenty of different products where the price has reduced faster than you would expect, just from the efficiency of the factory and from the technology advances. Yeah. So yes, I think deflation is a massive risk, and I certainly think that we're heading into a massive recession.
Well, AW07 says, funny enough, I feel deflated. Economically speaking.
Yes.
So guys, let me just Jimmy Davis says, Charlie, I'll sponsor you to create a conspiracy theory that houses aren't real. One of the things we're going to touch on is it's a section called Nominal Numpties, where we're going to talk about nominal versus real and whether it's a thing or not.
That's going to get me in so much trouble. You're basically lining me up to get a kicking from everyone who says, well, you don't buy houses with cabbages, do you? Thank you, Charlie.
We'll come back to that. But in all seriousness, for those of you who haven't been watching our economic prognostications, as the pair of amateurs that we are,
yeah, absolutely.
Going back to last year, and actually I put a link to it in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a link to the video we did called Death in Poverty that I know most of you have seen, but those of you who haven't seen it, you might want to watch it after this, because Alex explains in detail the meaning of that phrase, because it's what you see as where this country is going to end up, unless something that we haven't thought of happens.
Correct.
And that you couldn't think of anything that would stop it. As far as you can tell, it is an almost unavoidable.
Well, and now it's actually got worse in terms of people are now talking about 40-year mortgages, which means that you're going to have pensioners who are still paying a mortgage,
having their house repossessed when they can't pay it.
Correct. I mean, the death in poverty. But before this gets really dark, we said at the time, I think, in that video, or certainly in conversations afterwards, that we are in a technology revolution.
Mhm.
I mean, we're in a change of times. We're in a
Forthcoming.
change. Yes, well, whatever you want to call it. I don't read any of that stuff, so I don't know about it. But we are definitely in a financial step change. And the problem is, if you look at the previous revolutions, they've taken hundreds of years. This one will be slightly quicker because everything gets a little bit faster as the cycles move forwards. But it'll be about 2100. So for people alive today who are young, their grandchildren potentially will be living, if not a utopian life, because utopia actually means the land that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So whenever a newspaper reporter writes about utopia, it always makes me laugh, because Thomas More, who wrote the book, it was joking about the land that doesn't exist. So, but from 2100, we may have fantastic post-scarcity lifestyles. But
Okay.
you and
So
I,
we've got quite specific already. So I just want to come back and generalize it again for new people. So we both share, although we came at it from different angles, we both share a very negative outlook for the UK economy.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, I was doing this channel starting up, and you sort of chimed in and went, "Yeah, actually, Charlie, yeah, you're right." And you started
correct.
Yeah.
You wrote to me and said, "Do you think that 35% falls, are realistic?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
yeah."
And at that point, it all just made sense to do it together, do this together.
So this is relevant because if you're making the decision of whether or not to buy a house, whether or not to move house, and for a lot of people, that's a very, very long-term decision.
Yep.
25, 30 year, 35 year, if you're planning to buy a place, stay there, pay it off. And you're probably making assumptions about the stability of your job, the security of your job, your future income, your earnings increase.
What's going to happen with your family in terms of children,
Yes.
education, all of these things.
And unfortunately, and Alex will back me up, I am one of the most positive people my friends and family have ever known. In fact, to an annoying degree.
Yep, you are an optimist.
I am an optimist. I'm an optimist with one foot, like head in the clouds, 1 foot on the ground, kind of optimist.
That's fair.
And actually, maybe this isn't the video for it, but I want to talk about how I got the punch in the face that stopped me being an over-optimist and suffering from confirmation bias. And no, it'll be fine, which was, first of all, Irina telling me that I was stupid, and which she was right.
That is quite a funny story.
It is, yeah. Yes. Charlie, you're walking proof that ignorance is bliss. That's a great line.
I love that line.
That's a great line.
She was a good girlfriend.
Yeah, she was. And but the other thing was, some of you may not know this, you may not. I don't talk about it on this channel, but my hobby, my passion is flying. I'm a private pilot, and the thing about flying is every time you take off, either you get everything right or you're dead. It's literally that simple. Taking off is optional, landing isn't. Once you're up in the air, you will come down at some point. And hopefully you can do it in a controlled fashion.
It's a controlled crash, isn't it?
That's right. And any landing that you walk away from is a successful landing.
Yeah.
And if you can use the plane again, it's a bonus. Right? And one of the number one killers of inexperienced pilots is inadvertently flying into cloud when you're not instrument rated.
Yeah. So disorientation.
Yeah. And your life expectancy is 90 seconds once that happens.
Nice.
Yeah. If you do not know how to fly the plane on instruments, which you don't have to do to get your
absolutely
VFR
not,
pilot's license.
Well, you only have to do 40 hours of actual flying to get your pilot's license.
It's not a precise amount. You've got to meet some criteria. But the point is this. I can remember on one of my first long cross-country flights with Irina, as it happened, we were trying to go from White Waltham down to Cornwall.
Right.
And I looked at the weather forecast, and I didn't realize at the time, but I was suffering from an optimism bias, which is, it's going to be fine.
By the time we get there, the cloud will have passed.
It's sunny here, it's sunny there. There's the kind in the middle, but I'm sure we'll figure our way around it. And ended up having to radio air traffic control for emergency help and diversion, and was lucky that we didn't die, genuinely.
Yeah.
And that was the day that I was like, I don't want to hear optimistic view of
No,
the weather's going to be.
realistic.
I don't want to hear pessimistic view of the weather's going to be. I want to know what's actually happening.
Exactly.
And that's my approach to house prices and the housing market. I don't want to, oh, come on, it's going to be fine. It's going to go up. Be positive. And I don't want to be, oh, God, it's all going to go down. It's all going to go down. I want to go, no, let's just see what's actually happening. Let's remove emotion, remove bias, remove agenda, and just go, what's actually going to happen? And that's the way I look at it. And that's the way I look at the economy as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you and I share that, actually. I mean, it wasn't until I was 40 years old that I had my confirmation bias forcibly removed. And it's still there, of course, to an extent, but I'm much more conscious of it and I try and watch out for it now. So we think the economy is fucked.
Yeah, I mean, unlike you, I tend to go less from gut instinct, although I do trust my gut, but I love data. I've always loved fecking around with numbers. I like to see patterns. I like to understand why things work, how they work, and I went into IT, and that was suddenly vast amounts of data. And the great thing was, as an independent, as a freelancer, I got to see the data from lots of different companies, and I could explain to them why their company was going to be successful or not. And that meant that very quickly I was actually helping them with not just tactical projects, but strategic projects to explain, to get things done. And that's why when I look at our economic data, I'm neither happy nor sad. I mean, don't get me wrong. It makes me very upset that we are going to experience what we're going to experience over the coming years. But the data is the data. You can't. That's
the point. Yeah.
You can't feck with it.
No, and you can't go, nah.
No, we are in that much debt. Personal debt and company debt for non-financial institutions is 220% of GDP. Public debt is 100% of GDP.
Yeah.
That is 3 years worth of everything we produce in this country just in debt. Well, if somebody said to you, not secured against an asset, if somebody said to you, you're an average earner on 33 grand, how would you like to borrow £100,000 and then pay the interest on that £100,000, not secured against a house you can sell, just on not a credit card, because that's too much, but just a loan? That would be scary, wouldn't it? That would weigh on your shoulders, the fact that you have that much to pay.
Because the debt levels now, it's the worst since 1961, I think. Is that right? So 62 years.
Yeah.
Worst debt. I've got a question here from McCready747 for you. Alex, we're 24 months down the line. Interest rates have been raised. Housing market is down 35%. Do you agree with me that Bank of England will still not be at 2% inflation target?
No. I think actually, I believe that inflation will be well below 2%.
Right.
I think interest rates will be at somewhere between 3 and 4%. 3.75 to 4.25 would be perfect, but I think they'll be a little lower than that, somewhere between 3 and 4.
Right.
But inflation, inflation is growth, and we will not be in a growth cycle. There will be mass unemployment. There will be very little money spent in the economy. There will be businesses that are closed. Inflation is going to disappear much faster than people realize. We just have to get to the point in the pain of interest rate hikes that it happens. But when it happens, I try to explain it to it's like the vacuum of space. You open the door and literally poof, gone. Inflation will go from 8.7% to 4% to 0% in the space of a few months. Now, there are a number of people who I respect and I'm chatting to on Twitter who disagree with me, who have more of an economics background. Charles Archer, Kicking Mustang, talking to these guys, they think actually inflation is very sticky. I'm looking at the bank stats from the Bank of England and how much money people have in their accounts, how much money you can actually spend, and how much investment we're going to get from overseas. And I can't see it. I think not now, maybe in 3 months' time, maybe in 6 months' time. but inflation will just disappear, and deflation
Brilliant.
is the worry.
So inflation disappears. That means interest rates can come down and money will be cheap and house prices will go back up.
No.
But that's what everybody says.
No.
Everyone says that's what's going to happen.
No.
Inflation will come down, interest rates come down, and
God,
money will be
no.
cheap again, and everyone can buy big houses again.
And the companies will be dead. The zombies will
So
be dead.
this is what people need to understand. It's really important people understand this. It's like, don't think that because high inflation is what's caused all this pain, that if the inflation goes away, the pain goes away.
No.
It doesn't.
No, not at all. It gets worse in many respects.
Yeah.
Because what will happen over the coming 24 months, which is a good timeline for projections, is companies will refinance. But they'll refinance at much higher rates, and they'll lay people off, and the redundancies will occur, and then they'll go to universal credit, but the government won't be getting their tax receipts because people won't be employed. So therefore they won't be able to afford to pay. So then houses will be repossessed and the companies will go bust. And my reading, and this is where someone like Charles would be very useful, because I'm an absolute amateur, as both you and I have agreed, this is not our field. But I did an analysis of all 350 FTSE companies. I looked at their balance sheets. I went through all the available data. And as far as I could see, 20% of them were at risk. 70 companies were at risk. 10% of them, 35 companies, were just pure zombies.
So, okay, now for the uninitiated, exactly what do you mean by a zombie company?
A zombie is a company that only generates enough profit to service its debt.
Okay,
Really.
so it only exists because of its debts and because they're so it's cheap. And the moment they stop being cheap, the zombie company's gone.
Correct. But they employ over 5 million people in this country.
So, okay, hang on, I didn't know that. The zombie companies...
The true zombies, the 10%, employ about 2 to 2.5 million. But the ones that are at risk, the ones that, I look at and go, and I'm not even including things like the advances in machine learning and ChatGPT replacing service desk people and all that sort of stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about companies where their profit to earnings ratios, their debts versus their tangible assets. And this is the thing that's changed so much in the last 20, 30 years, is that companies are reporting intangible assets and goodwill as being part of what makes up their, the company's wealth. But you can't sell. No. It's very hard to sell goodwill and intangible assets, which means that when you get a call saying, well, you owe us this much, this is your debt, you can't pay it with intangible assets, and they've got no tangible assets. And those companies have over 5 million people working for them.
Okay.
It's a horrific.
So what do you know off the top of your head which sectors are more exposed to this than others? So who have safe jobs and who doesn't?
Well, retail is fucked. You work retail in a high street, you work in Currys, you work in, any of, look at what happened to Debenhams. Retail is fucked. Unfortunately, the whole entertainment stroke, what do you call it? The restaurant and bar.
Hospitality.
Yeah. They're also fucked. Now, the funny thing is, that's an industry where you can't replace people with machine learning algorithms. You actually need a physical server, but they can't afford their gas and electricity bills. They can't afford their food bills. They're making no profit. They're charging people so much that, in fact, just like over COVID, people learned they could actually cook at home, buy a better bottle of wine and invite their friends over after the lockdowns, because they would never have disagreed with those. Right. And suddenly your bill is a third of what it would have been if you go to a restaurant. Jesus, we went out today and had a couple of Caesar salads. You had a soft drink because you're a lightweight. I had a glass of wine, and you had an ice cream with coffee, and I had a coffee, and that was 60. That was £60. Yeah.
I know.
And your Caesar salad didn't even have chicken. It had squeaky cheese.
Squeaky cheese, yeah. Oh, there's some good comments here, guys. Thank you. Jimmy Davis says, in the last 2 months, has anything changed about your prediction of either speed or level of house price falls? Level, no. I would be less surprised if they exceed.
Yeah,
my
you're going
forecast.
35% plus.
Yeah.
You got a plus at the end of that.
So I'm not changing that. I think the average national UK house price falls, nominal falls, we'll come on to nominal in a minute, are going to be on average 35% or more down. Regional variations between 15 and 50%. And these are ballpark figures. So those of you who hate me but watch me anyway, and I know you're there, you fucking weirdos watching me even though you hate what I say, I just like...
Do you think they actually thrash themselves?
I know.
It's like they're whipping themselves.
I hate Charlie. Listen to him. He's What is it? Honestly, if you're so wound up by what I say, just do yourself a favor and go and watch Love Island or something.
No, watch The Big Short.
Go and watch The Big Short. We'll help you. The speed of house price falls. Okay. The first segment, the first 12 months, we won't know until we get the results, but it felt slow to me.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I suspect this is just speculation, right? But this second phase of falls might end up being one of the steepest we've ever seen in house price falls.
I don't disagree.
I've got a feeling that it's going to be...
There's going to be panic.
Much worse.
There will be, and this is the problem, is it will be panic.
It's very difficult for ordinary people to understand the compound effects of all the things that are different this time.
Yeah.
That have a real effect on everything we've been discussing. It's not like before.
No.
They don't understand. And I didn't understand to explain to me the fact that interest rates were lower than inflation for 12 years.
Never been before.
But no one, okay, but to the ordinary person,
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
But actually, that is a massive thing. Yeah. When you're looking at a macroeconomic level, it's when you look at the bird's eye view. And yeah, there's lots of things that are different. And when you start to add them all up, like it's going to be bad.
It's very bad.
And it is bad, even though people think, yay, house prices come down, I can afford a house. Unfortunately, the whole economy is going to be in such a horrific state. Yeah. Not much will be good.
If you retain your job, if your savings are still, then perhaps you can afford a house. But this is not going to be a good period.
Paddy O'Shaughnessy doesn't agree with you.
Oh, really? Paddy often doesn't agree.
He says this is 1970s inflation.
Supply side. What he's saying is it's supply side.
We are going to see re-spikes in inflation, he thinks. So he's disagreeing with you that inflation is going to, in a few months' time, just fall off a cliff and become deflation.
Nah, I know. I'm not convinced. I'm sorry. There's not enough money. The problem now, Paddy, the difference is all we have is debt. Back in the 70s, there was actually growth because you had the boomers coming into the job market, and you had the move in the 80s from the manufacturing to the services industry. You had a whole range of changes that we just don't have now. We're not going to make those changes, and what we have instead is a vast millstone of debt. Inflation is not coming back with a vengeance because there's no money to spend.
Wow. The me, or the me, I'm not sure, says, long-time lurker. Carried out my own research after watching your early vids. Completed a sale in April, just gone, after achieving a sensible asking price in November. Thanks for scaring the shit out of me last summer. I think they mean sincerely scaring them into selling. Because, well, I thank you very much, the me, to tell me that, because...
A pleasure.
I worry right now. I worry for all the people who were watching me last autumn, and I was saying, if you need to sell, you should do it sooner rather than later. If you wait till next year for the spring bounce, where's that gone?
Spring bounce.
You wait. You're going to kick yourself if you've waited. So it's very kind, very nice to get that feedback from you. Thank you. Someone else is saying, Ludwig von Mises will be proven correct again. Hyperinflation is inevitable now. CMB's collapse is 2008 on steroids. Stagflation, says Paddy. Essentials will temporarily hyperinflate. Yeah.
Why? Give me a reason.
By the way, Paddy, I'm on the fence in this debate.
Well, and as you know, we've discussed this. I'm also a little on the fence. I still believe we're going straight into recession, yet...
I honestly, we were about to say, I still believe we're going straight to hell.
Well, yes, I am.
Stig plus alcohol equals housing crisis.
Well, they're not wrong.
Could you see new home builders like Persimmon and Barrett, etc., go bankrupt like in the 2008 financial crash? Yep.
Yes, Kia is one of my zombie companies. Kia, who one of the
Kia
largest
Homes, yeah.
builders, Kia Group.
Who else do we have?
Oh, by the way, I shouldn't actually mention company names, should I?
It's public information, right?
Yeah, but fuck it.
Fine. Yeah. Question. Presumably, both of you are familiar with the principles of our present monetary system, which is a fiat debt-based currency system.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, this is a crypto question. I can tell before they've even started. There'll be crypto in there.
So I don't know if there's a follow-up question to that. Tom 1991 Ash says, why is the mainstream media putting the onus on the government to offer help? Sadly, we need to go through this madness to get out of it. Government will help, will only make the situation worse. Yeah, agree.
100%. Do not interfere in a complex mechanism. It only fucks it further.
Yeah. Nick Jones says, aren't most estate agents zombies?
Vampire zombies?
Wild Goose says, and this is a good segue into nominal numpties. Stupid question. No such thing. Say food inflation comes down from, example, 20% to 10%. Does that mean food prices come down?
No.
They just don't go up as much?
Correct. They just don't go up.
They just aren't going up. They're just going up half as fast.
Correct.
Okay. So now let's talk about...
And that's where deflation is what you then talk about, where actually prices do go down.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
that's a
negative
whole,
inflation.
Yeah,
minus. You want to see minus inflation. So, okay. So you and Kicking Mustang have had a Barney about whether or not you can buy
houses
with
with cabbages. Yeah. We haven't had a Barney. He's great. And by the way, follow his airsoft sniper stuff. It's so much fun to watch because he keeps shooting people in the head. And I don't know about you, but I fucking love seeing
paintballs, not with bullets.
No, not paintballs, with airsoft pellets. They're not paintballs.
Okay.
But I love just watching him shoot people in the head. It's fantastic. Anyway, by the way.
We'll come on to that. But Monkey Tennis asks, do you agree that with a Labour government, the UK will be uninvestable as any profitable entities will be taxed heavily to bail out the rest, thus leading to a mass exodus and many empty houses?
No, I mean, my view is that the Conservative versus the Labour government, there is now no difference between the two.
It's just the people.
Yeah, correct. They they're all property owners.
I agree with that.
Just nothing. Now, nominal versus real.
Now, let me just give you my introduction to this. Okay, so I know people who I've known a long time who, for whatever reason, and I don't know what the reason is, think in terms of the value of money from their 20s or 30s, and it never changes.
Yeah.
Even in their 60s and 70s,
Are you saying £60 for 2 Caesar salads with a glass of wine and orange juice is fine?
No, not at all. The opposite. So they are people who think they're wealthy because of the nominal amount of pounds they have, but can't understand why everything's so expensive.
I can't buy that car.
It's outrageous.
It's an outrageous price.
Back in the 80s, that was £20,000. Now it's £80,000.
Yeah.
But yeah. So in other words, they like my house has gone up in value.
Yes.
Yeah, but it hasn't gone up. It's gone up in numbers.
Correct.
But
it
not
has
as far in value.
No value.
It has. So if your house price goes from £100,000 to £200,000 over 10 years, say, the value of your house has not doubled.
No.
This is a really important thing to
Because
understand.
the cost of everything else in your life has also gone from £20 to £40.
The price of your house has doubled.
Yep.
The value has not. It is not worth twice. If you were to sell the house you paid £100,000 for £200,000 10 years later, you can't go out and buy twice as much stuff.
No. Now there are two occasions that we should mention. From 1995 to 2007, the value of your house went through the roof.
Okay. The real value.
The real value.
So that is inflation adjusted. It still went up.
And that's why you saw people from 2000 to 2007 living the high life, in inverted commas, driving really flash cars, drinking champagne in bars. I know.
Lots of free cheap.
And also, to a much lesser degree, and when I say lesser degree, I'm talking about a fifth, from 2013 to 2022. You got anyone who bought in 2013, 2022, actually, they got some decent value increase. Not like 95 to 2007, but still a good value increase. What's interesting is from 2007, if you bought then through till 2022, no increase
in value
in what you could actually buy. If you sold your house, took the cash and went out to buy shit, no increase.
Right.
But
even though the prices have gone up.
Yeah. But everyone went, no, I'm rich now.
And this is this confirmation. This is this optimism bias. Oh, I'm so wealthy.
Yep.
So, guys, anyone got any questions on this? Anyone got any questions about nominal versus real? So, nominal is the number, the price, the tag.
Well, let me put it this way. You see, when I created that model, which is pinned on my Twitter, I did it in real for the very simple fact that I can't guess inflation.
No.
I can't guess what inflation is going to be. And therefore, it makes much more sense to do everything in real because it's one less piece of guesswork that you're dealing with. I was dealing with real interest rates, real house prices, real wages, and real transaction volumes. And that is easy because then there's no guesswork, which is why the model works. If you then add in, oh no, well, you should do it nominal. Well, I don't know. That's why I gave three different options for what inflation would be. It could be 3%, 6%, 9%. So take your pick. You choose what inflation's going to be. We don't know what inflation's going to be because we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. What we do know is where wages, interest rates, house prices were at this point, and that allows you to create a real model. And that's why, don't get me wrong,
a real inflation adjusted model.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's why I understand when people go, oh yeah, but nominal's what you're talking about. Yeah, that's fine after the event.
Yeah.
But to predict the event, you have to work in real.
Yeah. Another way is looking at this is fuel prices. You know, if fuel was £1 a litre and you got 100 quid, you get 100 litres. If fuel's £2 a litre and you got 100 quid, well, it's still 100 quid's worth. It's only 50 litres.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how anyone can say inflation doesn't matter.
Exactly. I'm with you. Although I wouldn't call them nominal numpties because he will shoot you in the fucking head. I just want to tell you.
And by the way, someone said, did you call when they heard about the price of the dinner in the pub? Did you call the police because you got robbed? 60 quid for 2 salads is expensive. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Your salad didn't even have chicken in.
No, exactly. It had squeaky cheese. How can you trust a cheese that doesn't melt on a barbecue? It's fucked up. I'm sorry. I'm not in favor of that.
No, I'm not vegan.
He's just healthy with his healthy green drink.
Go fuck yourself. 35% full will win votes. Yeah, Sunak and Hunt seem prioritizing taming inflation above all. Yeah, Sunak and Hunt seem to be prioritizing the taming of inflation above all else. I don't think they have a choice. I don't like either of them.
I'm sorry, but they were always. I think.
Sorry to interrupt you. That really good economist is off on the BBC, Mohammed Else. He was next Goldman Sachs guy. He's now a professor somewhere. He made a comment this morning about how interest rates are an essential tool for to fight inflation, but they are not sufficient alone.
No.
He said the government's got
Requires
to
government
make other
policy. Of
policy
course it
changes
does,
as well.
yes, yeah.
Unless he does it, he said interest rates alone will not solve the problem. He said
If we don't stop old rich people spending money, inflation will not stop going up. It's that simple.
Maybe we should get Kicking Mustang.
Shoot them all in the head.
Do some euthanasia for the old people to save inflation, save the rest of us from inflation. Right. Can we burn the Tories at the stake? Asking for a friend.
No, because it's not. To be fair, this started with Blair. I mean, anyone.
By the way,
who's-
there are house builders going bust. So I'm whipping through a few of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did start. But how culpable is Rishi and BOE in not raising interest rates when they started?
Oh,
eating?
Rishi's a tosser. He's the schoolboy swot who understands nothing but passes all the exams just because he has the right
Yeah,
answers.
his teacher's pet.
But he doesn't actually understand.
I think he's Klaus Schwartz's
anything.
pet.
Yeah, yes. Sorry, did you say WEF?
Right. Here's an interesting point. Steve-O 728822 says Bank of England decide interest rates, not the government.
100%.
Allegedly.
No. Actually, what you've seen today, I'm amazed.
Why does the government keep saying we're doing everything we can to bring down inflation?
Oh,
And why does Jeremy Hunt keep talking about interest rates?
He's wanking in a corner. No, sorry, you are 100% right, and it irritates me every time I see people blaming the government about interest rates rising. That is a Bank of England's decision, and the fact that they raised them by 0.5% shows that actually they're much more independent than I thought they would be. Because I can imagine the conversations at the moment from Westminster to the Bank of England. They are saying, for God's sake, you're going to break everything. Please stop raising interest rates. And the Bank of England said, you gave us a mandate. Back in 1995, after Barings, you said we had to keep inflation at 2%. So fuck you, we're raising interest rates.
EHM, the person who asked us if we understood fiat currency earlier, says, would you agree that the problem isn't actually increasing interest rates, brackets, because interest rates should be higher than they have been, close brackets, but
Correct.
too much debt and money printing?
Yes. I mean, 1,000%. Yes. The fact, I tell you what, if you were born in 1950, and I can't remember, I'm going to make these numbers up, so I apologize. If you were born in 1950 and you became a citizen of the UK and you took on all of the public and private debt that the average citizen had in the UK, inflation adjusted, so this is in today's money, okay?
Yeah.
You would have taken on £14,000 of debt just for being born. And roughly half of that was private debt and half was government debt, about £7,000 each. If you're a child born in 2023 and you take on the average per capita debt in the UK, you at the same, so if bear in mind that number was inflation adjusted, so the same as today, these are comparable numbers, you are taking on £95,000 of debt.
Okay, so what was the first year? The first example year?
£14,000.
No, but what's the year? What year?
52, I think. Or
Oh,
something.
okay. All right, so that's 6 times the debt
Yes.
per
But
person.
that's inflation adjusted. That's the same as if you
Okay,
were
so
doing
in
it
value
this year.
terms, right?
In value, and that's
one
why,
cabbage, 6 cabbages.
that's why old people rich,
Yeah.
young people poor.
Yeah.
It's really simple.
Yeah.
The amount of debt per capita that we've been taking on, even inflation adjusted, showing it through, you just go, it went nuts. And it went, you know, when it started to go nuts? I mean, a little bit in the 80s, when we changed to manufacturing to service, there was a big increase, but it still only went up to about 25,000
Okay.
per person. But from 95 onwards and 97 through, it's just exponential curve. Huge debt.
I'm going to ask you, Zara A, pay attention to the back of the class. You must be a new follower. What will house price falls be in nominal terms? 35% average, regional variations from 15 to 50%. When house prices finish falling sometime in 2025.
Or if you believe me, 30 to 40% real terms.
Yes. What was I? Okay, all right. 600 people watching. Sorry, guys. I'm seeing me sitting going, what's that about? Right. If we were optimists,
Yeah.
and I am, actually, we are actually optimists, fantasists. If we were
Unicorns and rainbows.
fairy
I
dust,
can do that shit.
unicorns, and
Can I
rainbows.
invoke Charlie?
Yeah. Let me ask you another question. If you were advising the government on policy to help avert death in poverty, and you could do anything with your fairy dust, unicorn, rainbows, magic wand, are you going to say debt jubilee?
Well, I am. I mean, you know, that's one of the things I'm going to say. But actually, if I was seriously given carte blanche with this country and its companies, one of the things I'd do is exactly what Kwasi suggested. You create investment zones. You create massive areas where you're going to reduce taxes for companies coming in who are going to build manufacturing facilities. They're going to build life science facilities. You give them tax breaks because fuck it, you just need the employment for your people. Obviously, you're pushing STEM at universities. You want that. I mean, that is the way that I love art and poetry and theatre, and it's fantastic, but it doesn't generate an awful lot of cash.
No.
And right now, we can do all of those things, but we need to push the STEM subjects. We need to get at the front foot of biotech. I mean, biotech is the future.
And we need to make stuff.
Correct. We need to manufacture. So I create the investment zones. I give tax breaks on all the things that Kwasi, I mean, you know, when I first saw Kwasi's budget, I thought he was an absolute fucking nutter. And then I spent 3 days reading it, going through it, and looking at the alternatives, and then looking at the rest of the economy. And that's what started me off. That was that September thing where I looked at it and just went, Jesus Christ, we are fucked. This is the only, it is a Las Vegas last roll of the dice, hope for God that it's going to work. But it's the only thing that's going to work. And then you get Rishi and Hunt, who just come in with their tax, cut, tax and cut. There's nothing creative. There's nothing intelligent. There's nothing about those two that is going to save this country. All they're going to do is lead it into oblivion.
Someone says shrink the state by at least 60%.
Believe me, that when you said to me, oh, well, of course, there are those people in civil service who have these guaranteed jobs that'll never be sacked. And I've warned you a couple of times, that ain't going to happen. We are going to see the state shrink.
So are you saying that people who are sitting in civil service jobs at the moment feeling very safe and secure
shouldn't be? No. Fuck me. They should be feeling like Vlad the Impaler is appearing with a big spear up the arse in the near future. Honestly, it's not going to be pretty. The civil, and what's funny, do you know what's amusing about it? In a very sick, dark way, is that it's actually going to be Labour that are going to enact that.
Someone's got an interesting response to your investment zone thing. Investment zones don't create investment, they move it.
No. This will be external investment from other countries. The problem is, and don't get me wrong, I agree that the whole of the Western world is fucked.
All right. Here's someone else about debt jubilees. Responsible savers pay for debt jubilees.
No, they don't.
Well, they're being punished. I mean, what do responsible savers?
No, sorry, hang on. But they're thinking a debt jubilee applies to individuals. No. You have to understand. Debt jubilees will only apply at government and country level, just as they did in 1953 after World War II, where America, England, France, and Turkey and Spain and a whole bunch of other countries halved the German reparation payment in order to be fair to Germany to allow it to survive. This will not be about people having their mortgages paid off or their credit cards. This is only government and country level debt.
Yeah.
And I would never suggest a jubilee below that.
Right. Ian Downing says, why do you predict 2025 to be the year houses bottom out and not 2024? For the simple reason that there is a very, very long time lag in what happens in house prices. It can't be changed like that. And we know with pretty high levels of certainty that interest rates will continue to rise for most of the rest of this year.
Oh yeah. Up until I told you,
Right.
Christmas this year will be a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
It will be
Now,
a lump of coal.
So Ian, that means mortgages will continue getting more and more expensive for new buyers until the end of this year at the earliest.
Yeah.
And the effect of the peak of interest rates will start 6 months from now and will take 12 months before the effect actually reaches through to the pocket, which is the end of 2024. That's just so we won't see the effect of peak interest rates until the end of 24, beginning of 25.
Correct.
Okay, that's why this will not be over in 2024, because the property market and its transactions take so long to feed through. It's like a very large oil tanker. So whatever they do, it takes at least a year.
Yeah. Well, even if you're like me and you think that in the next 3 to 4 months, if the Bank of England continue to raise interest rates and we get to 6% and everything crashes, even then it would still be September, October of 24 before you saw the full impact on house prices.
Yeah.
You know,
This is brilliant. Do you feel personally responsible for driving inflation by spending 60 quid on a salad?
yes. By the way, I'd like to point out that he paid, so it's entirely his
Yes.
fault. But I invoke Charlie.
Couldn't they temporarily reduce tax on food, fuel, and energy to help lower inflation rather than interest rate hikes?
Reduce tax on
Food, fuel, and energy. I mean, there's no tax on food.
No. The problem is it doesn't. No.
So first of all, there's no tax on food. There's no VAT on food. There is on confectionery, but not food. Fuel, there is a lot of tax.
There is, but reducing the tax doesn't reduce the inflation. Sorry, what you're mistaking the fact that you're paying more at the pump for the inflationary piece. That wouldn't help.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is a pretty radical suggestion. Kevin H says, pass a policy allowing assisted suicide for the elderly.
Well, yes. I
Book
mean, don't get me
yourself in for
wrong.
the
I'm
red pill.
entirely in
Yeah.
favour of that. Switzerland,
Yeah.
they do it. And now
Book yourself in for the red pill when the money runs out.
you don't need the red pill. They've created these pods that will get a nitrogen gas, liquid nitrogen, basically
Right.
fills the pod. You press the button. Blah, blah, blah. The great thing about nitrogen is your lungs only realize that they have no air if the CO2 level changes.
Okay.
Whereas you fill it with nitrogen, you don't even know. You pass out completely happy and then die.
Yeah.
Well, I know that because I build liquid nitrogen facilities.
Jimmy Davis says, what are debt jubilees?
A debt jubilee is literally where countries forgive debt. It gets wiped off the books. Now, you have to understand that at the moment, our country, individuals are massively indebted, but the government has 100% debt. Now, they're 100% of GDP debt.
Yeah.
Now, that is costing more and more to service as interest rates go up and as bond. So what happens then is that they take the tax, which is the only money they have, the money we give them as citizens from tax, and they invest it into the NHS and education, all these sort of things. But they have no money, and so we get shitty services.
Mhm.
Whereas if you have a debt jubilee, what they can do is write off all of that money. Now, that debt jubilee, that money that has been put back into the government, has been sold as bonds out to other countries.
Yeah.
You know, France owns some of our debt, China,
Yeah,
America,
yeah.
whatever. But also private institutions.
Yeah.
They're a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But if we just all agree, if the countries get together and say, look, do you know what? We're all fucked. We can't invest in our own economies, especially Europe
Yeah.
and the EU. All of our services to our public are going bad. And as a government, our only job is to provide services for our public.
Yeah.
Our government works for us, not the other way round.
It's amazing to think that the entire NHS budget is matched by our interest payments.
Correct.
On our debt.
Correct. I mean,
you think about that and just like, that's real terms, isn't it? Like, entire NHS budget, also interest payments, same size.
horrendous.
N. Malik says house prices are still pretty high in Cheshire. Warren. House prices are still pretty high everywhere. They won't finish coming down for another couple of years. What can you do? Counts as down. Cool. Right, guys. Was there anything else you wanted to cover?
Any more questions?
Guys, you got any more questions before we go? Because we're going to wrap it up soon. It's getting late. Oh, that's a good question. Tom 1991 Ash says, if property is no longer a good pension option, what would you do if you guys were in your 20s or 30s now? That's a very good question. Well, we were discussing this over our salads.
Correct.
And had different ideas.
Yep.
There's no short answer to this. First of all, I wouldn't. I got myself into stupid amounts of debt in my 20s. I was just going, yeah, woohoo, new car, whatever, holidays. Didn't care. If my salary could cover whatever the payment was, I didn't even look at the interest. I was a total.
You were a tool.
Idiot. Yeah. Absolute idiot. So the first thing I'd do if I was in my 20s, 30s now is I would not be in any debt. And if I was in any debt, I would either pay it off if I could, or not pay it. Just go, right, guys, sorry, I can't pay it. And I'd do an IVA and pay them all 10p in the pound and go, right? I would do whatever it took to get out of debt, because literally paying high interest on debt is like working for nothing.
Yes.
It's like working for free. Because you work to get the money and you give it to someone else.
You're a debt slave.
You work to give it to someone else. It is no life. And also, all the time you're paying off debt or paying interest on debt, you're building nothing for the future.
Correct.
You're getting further and further. So that's the first thing I do. I came to this realization, I remember it was in 2008.
That's very late,
Yeah,
mate.
it was very, very late. But once I came to realization.
You were 36.
I'll tell you exactly what I did. Dude, I was living the high life.
Oh my goodness, you are the worst.
And I did this little sum. I remember exactly what I did. I went, I wonder how much
I've paid in useless money.
No, every month, how much of my long list of various repayments and leases and purchases, how much is the repayment and how much is the interest as a proportion of my disposable income. Over 50% of my disposable income was going on interest payments. And I was just like, that ends today. And I immediately began. And the funny thing is that...
You know what that sympathy I have for you?
It's a long time ago. This is 15 years ago. But what was a staggering thing, and if you're in your 20s and 30s, you're in debt now, listen to this, because I wish I'd learned this a lot sooner, it was like a snowball effect once I wasn't paying interest anymore. I started to accumulate money, which gave me choices and options that I'd never had.
Yes.
I could buy stuff, not spend on stuff. I could purchase things that had value.
Real things.
And life got easier.
Yeah. And also, there was never that crushing worry that every month you had that letter that came in that said, oh, you've got to pay X.
And I remember the first thing I did, actually, was I rang out my bank at the time, was First Direct. and I said, I want to pay off all my credit cards and loans at a high interest. And they said, done. And they gave me a loan. And instantly, overnight, I reduced my interest payments by a very large
massive amount.
Overnight, with that phone
Just
call, I
consolidating.
was suddenly a couple of $100 a month better off.
You did that with another loan, but you at least
Much lower interest.
consolidated your debts.
Yes.
The problem that these guys have, young people now, is this. If you had been born in the 50s and you just borrowed as big as you bloody could, because house prices really did gain in value, it didn't matter. You always ended up quids in. Now, don't get me wrong. There were people who were born in the wrong years. I literally mean within 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Who ended up buying in 89 or 90 or 87, let's say.
So what we're telling these guys, the answer to the question is be born in a different year.
Yes. What we're saying is that unfortunately, all of that using debt to make money, that's gone.
Yeah.
Forget that.
That ship's now sailed.
The problem then is where you go, okay, what about using money to make money? Well, I mean, both you and I are saying that the FTSE is going to fall, house prices are going to fall. Yeah. Where do they put their money?
Well, this is exactly. And this is
how do they make money from money? And you're sitting there at this point going, shit, I sound like somebody back in the 1930s in America going, well, you should buy gold. Gold, my son, gold is the answer. Well, no, actually, it's not going to make you much money. But for the next 10 years, the question you need to ask yourself is not how I'm going to make money. It's how I'm going to lose the least value with the money I have.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. And I don't know if this is a helpful answer, Tom. Are you Tom or are you Ash? I can't tell.
Tomasz,
but
he's Polish.
It's Tom 1991 Ash. So that's one thing. I also think that one of the things that's worth accumulating, and I wish I'd started sooner, is when you do have money that you've got, what can I spend this money on? What can I do with it? Investing money in acquiring a skill of value is a fun thing fun way to spend money. So, for example, for me, I started spending my disposable income instead of restaurants on learning to fly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which was fun.
Yeah,
I was having an experience. It was also a cathartic, genuinely good learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant fun flying planes. But I ended up with a qualification and a license and a skill.
Yep.
And that allowed me to do more and meet more people, and it opened new doors. And so it's an intangible investment that you can't.
Oh no, always invest in yourself.
But
whatever training
invest
you think.
Yeah, like if you invest in experiences, skills, not so much qualifications, but things that are things you could get paid to do.
Hang on 1 second. Take a step back. There comes a point when you're old, and I mean our age.
Speak for yourself.
Fucking lightweight. There comes a point when you're old where people do look. Oh, did he go to Oxford? Is he an Oxford man? Is he a Cambridge man? Yeah. But for the vast majority of your career, it's immaterial. If you can do the job, you'll get employed, because when you're young, you're cheap. And when you're cheap, if you're good, you'll get the next job and the next one and the next one. But it is so worth investing in anything that you find interesting.
Yes.
That is not necessarily a university degree at £30,000 or whatever, 40,000, whatever it is these days to get a degree. Get your sailing skipper's license.
Yes.
Get your pilot's
practical
license.
usable things. Yeah.
Get your
HGV license.
Get your electrician's qualifications. Get something that is actually fucking useful
and that no one can take away from you.
Yeah. Whereas the academic, I mean, I think the disappearance of polytechnics was the saddest thing that could happen to this country.
Okay, so I want to just take. So Paddy has got a question for you. Ask Stig about sovereign debt. Inflation is here to stay based on government debt unless they hugely reduce civil service. Not convinced.
Okay, This is Paddy O'Shaughnessy.
That's right.
Paddy, I do think they're going to reduce the civil service. I think they are number one for the head block. That's where logically I would aim my axe if I was the headsman. They cost a fortune. They can be replaced quite easily. So they go. In terms of inflation being here to stay, in order for there to be inflation, there has to be growth in the country.
Right.
You don't get inflation without spending and growth.
Yeah.
And there's no fucking money. I go back to, where's the money coming from?
Right.
Show me. It's
Yeah.
like Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
We
Show
should
me
put
the
that on
money.
there.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
My only demand is back to work says Titanic submarine is a great alternative to red pills. It's a bit soon for that.
Did I tell you about that
Yes, you
on
did. Yes, you did.
live?
No,
it wasn't
Yes,
live.
yeah.
Shall I tell you about it again live?
Alex Pitcher says the problem with the quasi plan is it didn't fit the WEF agenda.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It got actually. Forget the WEF. It was America that shut that down. The fucking Yanks. If you look at the communication that happened straight after Quasi announced, and don't get me wrong, Truss was the wrong person to announce it, but it was America that killed it. They didn't like it because it would hurt the dollar.
Monkey Tenor says loving Stig joyfully discussing assisted suicide. A middle finger to the poor little me brigade.
You cannot go wrong with liquid nitrogen. It is the way forward.
Will we? So Miss Jane 782 says, will we see deflation in assets and inflation in essentials? Rent, food, and mortgage.
Oh well, I mean that's the worst of all worlds.
Yeah.
I mean that's the model that I predicted the Stag, where we end up with 54% real and 45% nominal drops in house prices.
Right.
I hope not. My answer to you is I fucking hope not, but yes, it's possible.
Simeon Nedyelkov says, can you explain government debt and who it's owed to? Well, very, very brief on this. It's government debt is created by issuing bonds, and they are issued to anyone that wants to buy them.
Yep.
Financial institutions, other countries. So it's just borrowing money, literally. It's just, they call it a bond to make it sound nicer than a debt, but bonds are debts. Question in the just looking for more questions. Otherwise, where is the best place to see it? Yeah. Do you think a World War III is coming soon due to the current situation around the world?
I fucking hope not.
I hope not.
I tell you what, my biggest concern at the moment in terms of world wars has nothing to do with Ukraine and Russia. It is China and Taiwan.
Yeah. Okay.
Only because if China takes Taiwan, that is the major manufacturer for all of the semiconductors and chips that we use globally.
Yeah.
And people go, that's okay. The US have a plan to scale up. EU have a plan to scale up manufacturing. No, you don't understand. The only company that produces the machines capable of actually printing the wafers that these guys are making is in the Netherlands.
Okay.
And their machines are 350 million pounds a pop. But forget the 350 million. The fact is they take months for each individual machine. If China does decide to fuck around with Taiwan, we will have years before America or Europe can be at the same manufacturing potential of Taiwan. And that affects every industry. People go, no, I mean, it's just IT. It's just IT.
It's a supply crunch, isn't it?
But it's a supply crunch for every industry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean, literally everyone.
Someone who's obviously a late comer to the video says, why the sex worker title? And that's a good question. Firstly, it's because I had to grab a thumbnail at short notice that had Stig on it, and it was the only one I could find. Secondly, because the sex worker and rent was from a previous video where we discussed GDP. And in this video, we actually been discussing the economy. We haven't touched on GDP. I think we should just touch on GDP to then wrap it up. There's still 600 people following. But so GDP what happens to GDP if house prices fall 30%?
Okay, well, technically nothing.
And then I explain about the sex workers and rent, because
Ah,
so there's because there's rent.
I
mean,
like sex workers,
Yes.
and I don't like paying rent.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
sorry, no. Technically, nothing happens if the house price drops. Officially, however.
but aren't the imputed?
Oh
rent-
yes. Now here we get into the interesting part. Imputed rents are what they calculate from people who own their homes but don't pay rent. But if they did have to pay rent, this is how much they would pay.
And that would be calculated on house values.
Yes, and at the same time a resounding no. So imputed rent currently makes up 10.2% of GDP.
That's just a staggering. Think about that, guys. Right? We are now like the GDP figures coming out every month. They're like, oh, we're plus 0.1%, we're minus 0.1%. Like these tiny figures, and yet over 10%
10.2%
is invented rent,
is my dad, who owns his home that he's never paid rent on,
paying himself rent.
paying himself
And that's
rent for
considered
owning
value.
his home. Anyway, so yes, as house values drop, you would expect rental values to drop at some point,
Yeah.
but not necessarily in line with the
Okay.
house price drop.
Okay.
So the government can still pass it off as, oh, well, we're calculating this based on X, Y, and Z. And that's what they do, is they fudge the fucking figures.
Yeah.
So my answer to your question is, obviously, a massive drop in house prices of 30% would impact imputed rents, and therefore they should also drop.
Right. And
The
now
government would say, no, you can't equate rent to the value of the property. It's the value in the market, and therefore we kept it the same.
yes.
And our GDP, we're still 0.1%
Yes.
growth.
Yeah. So and now we have the sex workers and the drug dealers who both
Over 5% of our GDP is illegal drugs and shagging. I've got to be honest. I'll keep shagging if it helps GDP. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay. So in all seriousness, it was a shock to me when
I can't believe
in
you're
the official
so naive.
No, I'm not naive. It was a shock to me that the government working out
Including
our
cocaine
economy
and famine.
includes oh dear. I'm gonna have to stop this soon, aren't I? He's had too much gin, here we go.
Sorry.
And it's not
cocaine
just
and
fanny, it's
sex.
ours as well. Come on, it's
I didn't say us.
well, it is. It's
I
not
would
just
never
fanny,
go
is
to
it?
the dark
There are
side.
male sex workers
What are
too.
you talking about? It's ridiculous. And they're very small percentage. Very small.
Yes. Stig's had too much gin.
No. But in all seriousness,
The point I was trying to make is that the official government GDP figures include sex and drugs,
yes,
and they don't include rock and roll.
no, actually, well, yeah, sort of do entertainment,
Music sales.
Yeah,
But
music
I mean, okay,
sales.
that's actually that goes to account. But
Yeah,
like
shit. Yeah.
sex and drugs makes up 5%. Is it really?
Yeah, about 5%. It's just under.
It's a
bit
lot.
under.
And I wonder if, because there's a lot less recreational spending happening at the moment.
Do you know the
I
one
wonder if
thing-
they've actually reduced their.
Oh god, I'm gonna have to admit this now because I am.
No,
sad.
I don't think I want you to.
No, I'm going to. I am a sad statistical bastard. There is a website in the UK. Okay, an old friend of mine, Hannah, and her name is Hannah Pepper.
It's not. You're not giving real names, are you?
Yes, I'm giving real names, and I don't care. And we were out on holiday together, and she was going off to be a sociology student, and she is now Dr. Pepper. Yes. So that's why I had to tell you her name.
I'm so relieved.
So
Sorry.
we
Again.
had an argument about the whole sex worker thing.
Yeah.
And she did research and I did research, And of course, I had to read like a whole bunch of stuff in order to do the research. And I learned about the legality in the UK. And the legality is actually prostitution is not illegal in the UK unless there's more than 2 people in a property, in which case it becomes a brothel. There's a whole range of fucking laws I was not aware of. But what I found was a website, because everything became internet-based, called adultwork.com.
Right.
And on there were, well, pretty much everyone who was advertising sexual services. Now, this was interesting because this was 2004.
Yeah.
And I looked at this site in 2007, 2008, 2009, and actually the number of people on the site went from 80,000 to 125,000. And you're like, shit, that is a pretty serious increase. That shows you how much, impact the recession has had. These women are now advertising sexual. So I use that, and to this day, I still use that as one of my leading indicators of how fucked we all are. And actually, so far,
no pun intended.
No. Actually, that probably wasn't the best turn of phrase. How damaging the downturn in the economy is going to be.
Yes.
And so far, actually, there hasn't been a massive increase. But that's not surprising, because unemployment generally comes a year to 2 years after the bottom of the market.
Okay.
The interesting thing is actually the companies, they lay people off.
You said 2011 was the worst for
correct
unemployment.
after 2008.
It was 3 years later. Yeah.
Yeah, and so therefore that's why I'm saying after 2023, it could be 26, 25, 26 that we start to see. And I will still be using the adult work index in order to, because it's a good estimate.
Well, listen, guys, on that happy note, and given that Stig is starting to slur his words slightly, I'm going to call time. It's been brilliant fun, as ever. In fact, we don't do this often enough. Oh, there's so many comments I have missed out here. Thank you all so much. Yeah, I know. Thank you so much, guys, for... I hope you've enjoyed that this evening. It's been great fun for us. I hope that was interesting and fun and useful and relevant in some way, shape, or form. And I will update...
What did they say?
Happy ending.
Everyone loves a happy ending.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
That's why Princess Bride was invented, so we can have a happy ending.
Yeah, thank you, guys. It's been great fun, as ever. See you all soon. See you on the next one. Love and luck to everybody. And don't go out and buy expensive salads, because you'll just add to inflation. On that happy note, see you on the next video, guys. Bye-bye.